Hey, what's up? It's Chris, your real estate advisor in the Metro Atlanta area. And today on my podcast, Real TEA, I have a guest, a friend of mine, Mr. Caleb. Would you introduce yourself to the people, please?
Yes, sir. I'm Caleb Shiflett, your hometown lender with Local Lender. I am a mortgage broker, and I'm excited to be here. I first time on any type of show, so we're gonna about have to see how this goes.
It'll go just fine.
Good.
I think we got good chemistry.
Oh yeah.
So as we go, we'll figure things out. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you got into the real estate mortgage industry, and then we'll just jump into it.
Yeah. It's a quick story. I was actually a machine shop manager when I first started, and then I just felt like it was time. I felt God was pushing me out of what I was doing. It was a comfortable job, and but I felt like there was just something else I wanted to do. And the only thing I knew about mortgages is that I had one on my house. That was it. So, and then I called a buddy who was the branch manager of a retail mortgage company. And I just called him and says, hey, I heard y'all were looking for people. What does this all entail? Took my test, got my license. I think if I would have had to retake that test, I wouldn't be here right now because that was enough testing for me.
It was the same with the real estate.
Yeah.
People think, oh, it's not many people pass it on the first try. Actually, people take 2-3 times before they even get it. So I get it. It's not as easy as people think. So what intrigued you really about the mortgage industry? And then I really want to get into, for the viewers, is what's a mortgage and how do we go about getting it?
Yeah. So I started looking into being a realtor about a year before COVID, or probably 6 months before COVID. And I just wanted something to where I could almost be my own boss, but do something to where I felt like I was helping. Right. But also spend time with family. When with the realtors, I feel I feel like y'all have got it worse than we LOs do. So hats off to y'all. And then so when COVID hit and everything kind of restructured, I kind of just stayed with the machine shop, and then I started looking into what loan originators do. And I think it's just been a perfect fit because you get to take a client, see where they fit within what the government regulates, what the lenders' guidelines are, and you're just trying to navigate them through the guidelines, almost like a puzzle, right. And kind of say, hey, how do we get you financing for this home to start your wealth building, if it's for first-time home buyers, or to continue, you're moving from this home to that home, where does everybody fit in that? And I don't know why, it's just the way my head works. I stinking love it. I wish I would have jumped into this industry years ago. So,
well, what's the saying? Better late than never.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's good. That's good. We're in there. We're
God's timing.
Hustling. That's it. Amen. What can we tell people about the mortgage and why having a mortgage is so important? I know a lot of people are focused on interest rates, but I look at it this way: is if someone's willing to lend me money, whether it's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, interest rate really doesn't matter as much to me. Granted, as long as it's not over 9-10%.
Right.
But it's not where I prefer to have more liquid cash put away where I can actually play with.
Yep.
Versus just buying a house cash. Because I do have clients who, I want to buy it cash. And first thing is, why you want to buy it cash? Oh, I don't want no debt. I said, well, not all debt is bad.
Right.
Your house is going to appreciate over time, as long as you take care of it. So what if you're getting a loan at, what are the rates at right now?
Yep.
Ballpark.
You're probably sitting at around 6.5 with a decent down payment, decent credit score. They've been fluctuating here and there. We were hoping for some better rates after May 10th with the Fed.
With the CPI coming out?
Yeah, the CPI. Thank you. And but it's coming down. It's kind of a roller coaster coming down, but it's coming down nonetheless. But I have to agree with you. Wherever the rates are at, don't worry about that. If you're looking to build your wealth, you've just got to get in. And you can't look at past and say, I should have bought then.
Too late.
Because it's too late.
Right.
Because when's the next too late happening? You're going to wait. Oh, well, rates are too high. Well, okay, if they're high, but what if they do go higher?
Right.
What if there is that chance? Because nobody knows. But what if they do go higher? So you're still waiting, and you're still not in a home.
So if you got it now at 6.5 and they went higher, you actually got it at the best rate.
Yeah, you got a good deal. Yeah. So and you're in your home.
It comes down in 2000. 2004, my wife and I, we started looking at purchasing our first home. And one of my mentors, he was like, "How's it going?" I said, "Man, we can't find a house that we like at the budget at the time that we had." And he's like, "What do you care? Just buy it. It's going to be your first home." Most Americans don't live in a home longer than at the time was 5 years.
Yep.
Now we're a little longer, 7 years.
Yep.
And then you get equity on the home, and you end up moving or buying a bigger home, and so on and so forth. And he's like, "Let me explain something to you. The difference between rich people and poor people or the average Joe." He said that we don't care about interest rates. And it's not that we can't afford, it's not because we can or cannot afford it. It's because we know over time it's going to appreciate.
Yep.
So we buy what we can now, and in a few years, we either sell or refinance or get a HELOC and buy something different. But you can't play in the game if
Until
you
you're
haven't.
in.
Right.
Yep.
So that's been the mentality my wife and I have been taking. It's like, okay, you know what? Let's just get in the game. Yeah, let's get it at a higher interest rate. And then eventually, we've been in the game so long. A few years ago, people were at like 2.5,
Yeah.
3%. And now we're back sort of to reality where people don't realize before the pandemic, before 2018, your average interest rate was around 5%.
Yeah.
So now if we're at 5.5, 6.5, you're not too far off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at 2008, my parents, they refinanced after the crash just to kind of help pay some off debts and things, and they were sitting at 11%.
Yeah.
But, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying is like getting in, my wife's grandparents, both sets, on her mom's side and dad's side, said the same thing to us at different times. Mm-hmm. They said, when we were house shopping, they said, whatever you do, get in and don't stay with one house. And they both came from very poor situations. I'm talking about one of her granddads, if they had a can of beans to eat at night in Cleveland, Ohio, they were doing well. Just broke, poor, and now she's sitting at living in $1 million house, where her grandparents are. And what they said was, you get in it, live in it for 5 years, get that appreciation, take it out, go find something bigger. Right. And obviously, yeah, you're still going to finance, but you keep moving every 5 years, don't get attached to a house, and you'll just watch and be amazed at how your home equity, your wealth, not just your money, and I think that can be sometimes the disconnect.
Right.
Is people get scared because there's no money in the bank account, but, and I get it scared as a first-time home buyer when we slapped 25% down, which you don't have to do, by the way. We chose to because my wife was not paying PMI, and so she is my finance committee. So we saved up enough for 25%, and we slapped that down, and it drained our bank account. Mm-hmm. Well, slapping 3% or 5% will drain your bank account. Well, if you imagine, it's not the money's not your wealth; it's the value of the asset. Correct. That will be your wealth, because the value of that money is fluctuating all the time. But your home, your real estate, they're not making any more of that. In fact, the demand has gone even more, which is why our equity has gone up the past 2 years.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So most of my viewers or followers or subscribers, most of them know that on a regular market, we're looking at 4 to 5%.
Yep.
Yearly, year to date, or as far as the equity going up.
Yep.
4%. The last few years, we were at like 20%.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Unprecedented. Yeah.
Right. But still now with the market the way it is, which it's not a bad market at all, it's just not as great as it was last year, we're still looking at around 6 to 8% depending where the area is at. So my question to a lot of people is, okay, you have your money in the bank. How much are you getting for that? Because I know mine's is less than 1%. So
I remember when Chase was like, hey, if you stick it in this money market account, I think you can get 0.2%, or like, it was very minimal,
right?
And I was just like, I've watched my equity in the past 5 years we've owned, and I was like, there's no way I could have saved up this much, in a bank account. So I agree with you. I think if I could just sit down with anybody who's worried about buying right now, if they're not already in a home, especially renters, to get them into a spot and say, why are you renting? Is now a good time to buy? Because there's very few cases where, okay, it might not be a good time for you to buy, but when is? If your goal is to be a homeowner, when is that good time to buy?
Right.
And just because you don't qualify doesn't mean it's not a good time for you to buy. Let's figure out what we can do to get you to that point to where you can start building your equity. So,
And that's another thing. People who don't qualify, I get a lot of calls, or I call a lot of people actually, people who are on my website or people who just send private messages saying, hey, I may be interested, but I'm scared. I don't really want to get in there. And I tell them, you know what? Let's figure out first where you're at. Because I have not met anybody who is, well, actually, I have met one person, a friend of mine, but he's a very rare breed that are ready from the get-go.
Yep.
You know, there's always something we have to fix, and that's where you come along. So, you know, you'll pull a credit and see what debts have to be paid off, or, you know, do they have to make a little more? Or can we discuss, or can we help people explain the process where, hey, when we start helping you, it's not an automatic, let's jump to the street. There's a process that goes in between that we must work and build on, because most people are not ready, and they may think they're ready, but they are not ready to actually go for the home search
Right.
and get approved for the mortgage. And I think that's where we come into play as advisors is, listen, we're here to help you. And so what's some of the things that you have seen in the past with some of the clients? Because I know most clients are not ready and approved in seconds.
Yeah. It very rarely, there's like you said, there's a handful that they're either experienced buyers and they know what they need, they know what they got to do. But even then, sometimes there's something that popped up on their credit report that knocks them out of qualification, right? I know for me and my wife, like I said, my wife, she is I call her the Dave Ramsey guru because she follows all his stuff and things like that. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'll make it. You can spend it, save it, however you want to do. It's just, it makes it easy for me, right?
Right.
Well, when we first went, one of the things that we didn't realize is the guy told us we didn't qualify because we had no score, which come to find out, it was just with that institution we didn't qualify, right? Because we didn't have a credit score. And so he was asking, me being naive, I was like, well, what do we need to do to have a credit score? He says, well, do you have any credit cards? I said, no. I was like, we were told all our lives never to get a credit card, and we actually listened. So now you're saying I can't get financing. So it can be a little frustrating, and that's why it's important to be prepared to where what I look at as for me is I try to make sure that there's enough money in the bank account. And usually if you have 6% of the sales price you're looking at to 7%, you're usually sitting pretty decent either with FHA or conventional, and depending on the market with seller concessions, right? I look at credit scores. I look at what's in a credit report that, no foreclosures, bankruptcies, even with that, how long have they been, any lates on a previous mortgage, things like that. We look at work history, which some people, I was just talking to a friend of mine. He's like, well, I got to wait for my 2 years with this job. I was like, well, are you hourly or salary? Are you 1099 or W-2? And he's like, I'm W-2 and I'm paid hourly. I was like, why are you waiting 2 years? He says, well, that's what the lender told me. I said, no. They just want to make sure that you've worked for 2 years, 2 full years. And I was like, man, you've been working for 12 years ever since I've known you. Right. I was like, that's a non-issue, but those are one of the things of work employment. The steadier the employment you have, of course it's better, right? But it all just kind of depends on what each client has. And so that's where I would like as an LO, and I think you would agree with this, to where allowing the clients to trust the process and realize that it is not just, me being ignorant and naive at the time. I wanted to go and it's like, man, I pay my bills. I just want money for my house. Can you lend me? And it's they're lending thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They've got to do their due diligence, And so, and I was frustrated at first because they wanted to know everything about me. And it's like, well, they're lending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right. So it kind of brought me to reality to where those are some of the few things that I realized that, man, this is with everybody. Your income, your debts, your credit score, and kind of your work history and how much you have saved up in either a bank account, 401k, which I don't always advise using, but it's sometimes nice to put on there so the lender sees it as, oh, he has plenty in case, whatever happens.
Something happens, yeah. This, what you're just talking about just brings back, I was speaking to someone, it's like, well, why should I be paying so much in interest? I said, well, do you have the $400,000 that you have,
Yep.
The biggest risk is with the bank because you stop paying, you leave, the bank is on the hook for whatever it is, $400,000. Yep. So, they're charging 6%, they have the biggest risk. You only put down 3 to 20%, whatever the case may be. for some people, it's worth it just to walk away. So,
Yeah.
you
Which,
put in the risk.
oh wait, that's
Yeah.
kind of
A lot
where we had a
happened.
lot of happen.
Yep, a lot happened in 2008. My wife and I, we had some rental properties back then, and unfortunately, they stopped paying because a lot of people lost their jobs. And,
Yep.
talk about '08. A lot of people like to view 2021, 22, 23, and compare it to '08. We're in a big difference of a market where
Totally
over there we had, in 2008, we had so many houses in the market or inventory,
Yep.
where now we barely have anything. More people want to buy. The demand is bigger. The market has shifted very little. It's still a seller's market. I'm out there with clients now looking that are very picky, and that's fine. But your options, when you start breaking it down, your options are smaller, which reverts going back to why I want people to be prepared.
Yep.
When I talk to them, it's like, listen, let's start working on getting you approved.
Yes.
Let's start going through that process. It may take a month. It may take 2 months. Heck,
Could be 6 months.
yeah. I've had people where now we're going at a year and
Yep.
they still can't get it, but it's a process. And the loan process is probably one of the biggest, because this is what's going to determine if you can or can't afford it.
Yep. And that's one of the things. It's like, I don't ever want to be a person that says, I'm going to make this stressless for you. There's some companies that can advertise that. That's fine. This is, for most people, their biggest asset. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be nervous. There's going to be a lot of emotions wrapped up into it. But it's also a lot of work. It is, if people can plan and prep for their home buying process, that's what's going to get them into a home. The ones that just think about it, they don't ever pull that trigger. They don't ever, just try to cut back on spending. They stop eating out so much, and they're always trying to put back because they're trying to save for that down payment, or they're just trying to make sure they have enough for closing costs, whatever the case may be. Right. I even heard one of my coworkers, they said, look, you just need to go get a higher paying job and we can get this done. And you know what that person did? They went from getting a low paying job to a higher paying job. And not only that, she worked there a month, but she also was able to afford a higher house, what the house she was looking at closed. And so now not only does she has a home, but she's having a better job, all because somebody pushed her and says, this is what you need to do, So I don't know. I love the industry. So
Oh no, I love it too, especially when you're able to hand the keys over and it's taking you so much time to help these individuals get a home and they finally get it. But speaking of jobs, I hear that a lot too, where, you need 2 years. And I explain you don't need 2 years in the same job. And
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong, you need at least 2 years of work history in the same field? Or
No.
how does that work?
No, it all just depends. If you're W-2, as long as most W-2 hourly employees, if you're just straight hourly pay, get 40 hours a week, 80 hours bi-weekly or twice a month, you can, as long as you've had 2 years of work history and you can prove it, you're going to be okay. Now, if you've jumped around in the past 2 years and have had 5 different jobs, the underwriter is going to sit there and go, this looks a little risky, because they don't stay at one job, right? Doesn't mean they won't qualify. Now, where the 2 years kind of gets confused, I believe, is that when you jump from W-2 to a 1099, almost like you're self-employed, or you're based off commission, or you have variable hours, because that's where, especially with 1099 and self-employed, that's where they want to see that client or that borrower can survive basically off 2 years, and they have 2 years to say, look, their income has at least stayed the same or increased, and it's more than likely to continue. Now, there's some people with variable income, which I mentioned, where they can work, it's the hours are kind of all over the place. They'll work Monday, Tuesday, get off Wednesday, and then they'll work Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The next week, they'll work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, have Friday off, right? They're generally paid the same. That's variable income. You could almost qualify. I say almost. There are some programs that will qualify a borrower with under 2 years, but over a year of that. So it gets a little confusing when it comes to that. It depends sometimes on the underwriter, obviously, and how they interpret the guidelines. Yep. But mainly, if you're W-2 hourly, and as long as you can prove that you've been even working, well, get this. I even had even building your case, right? It's all about building the borrower's case, saying, hey, look, this is why. You can even have, say, a gap of 2 years. right? So I'll say if you have a client, she just started back in the workforce for 6 months. In the past 2 years, she's been a stay-at-home mom, just had a baby, things like that, and she left her career before that, right? So what I would do is I would grab that 6 months of income, right? Then I would go back, explain the gap that she was a homemaker, she was staying home with kids and things like that, and then I would grab another year and a half from her previous job to show that, look, she was working. This is when she started, then this is how long she was on that. And there are underwriters that will approve that because she's back in the workforce.
Right.
She has a commitment letter from either her employer, or they have a verification of employment. And so, there's even instances to where it's like, oh, well, I don't have 2 full years. Yeah. It's like, well, yes, you do, but how can you build that case? Right. Self-employed, that's a totally different scenario. For instance, me with jumping in, when I jumped into the mortgage business, I went from a steady W-2 to a 1099, and I would have to wait 2 years to make sure that my income was steady or increasing, or kind of figure out, what's going on there. So I hope that answers that question.
That answers that question. So your advice to people who are on the line, they want to buy, but they're not sure how they buy or what to do. What would be your advice as a lender?
When I first started out, I had one client that, and I think every LO would kind of go through this. We look on paper and says, you know what, on paper you can afford this much. Mm-hmm. And when I present it back to the borrower, I was like, hey, this is how much you can afford. This is your monthly payment. Well, they know the ins and outs that we don't get to see. Their gas. Some of the programs don't even consider childcare. Well, if they have a kid and they put them in daycare, the mom is almost working a full-time job just to pay for the daycare, right? Yeah. We don't have to put that on most loan programs. USDA, you do. And so I want to look at the client, the borrower's file, and make sure that whatever they're looking at, that it's working towards their goal, right? I think home ownership is always what you need to be doing. If you're renting, you need to go get a home, right? Yeah. Your goal should be getting a home. I mean, you just take the past 5 years. I'll be open. My wife might be too mad, but it's okay. The past 5 years, our mortgage payment's $1,000 a month. My mortgage payment has not gone up in the past 5-6 years. I think going on 7 years now. It's stayed the same. Mm-hmm. Now, what has rent done? It's done nothing but gone up. And then if you look at that, and if you just take, okay, if we bought in 2016, what was the average rent, in this area? I would say maybe around $1,200. Mm-hmm. I think, I'm not sure.
Let's say $1,000 to $1,200.
Right. Yeah. Well, right now, average is probably around $2,000 to $2,200. Yeah. I'm getting calls like that. And
here in Atlanta, there's a new development going on, 400 square feet for $1,600. And people are loving it. But if you would just calculate the $1,600, because what people don't understand is that money literally goes down the drain.
You're paying somebody else's mortgage.
Yeah. and I've stated that many times. They don't realize it, but, I'm going to be paying this much. Listen, a big percentage of that is going to go to pay down your house.
Yeah.
Where at the end of, if you stay in there 30 years or whatever it is, 5 years, you're paying that down. That money's going back into your pocket eventually.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then when you're spending, if somebody was still renting and say their rate never changed, their rent never increased, over the course of 5 years, what is that? Is that 60 or what it
60 months times.
Yeah, 60,000 that you're never getting back. You're never getting back. You're never going to see it. While I have it in my house, not only the mortgage payment that I've made and the percentage of that, but also the equity that I've gained in that. And it's just, I don't know. If there was one thing I could convey is to let's take a look at their file. Let's look at your scenario, because everybody's different. It's self-employed. I haven't seen one self-employed person that has the same taxes to qualify off them. It's all over the place. And so that's why it's important that you always get with, either a mortgage expert or a real estate agent when they're buying or selling. You get with somebody that says, look, let me look at this. Why should I buy now? As much as I hate saying it, because everybody's been saying it, is like, don't always just listen to what the major media is saying. Listen to what's going on in your local market, because your location matters. I've had a client out in Texas, and he was wanting to buy his it's not his first investment, but kind of have a non-traditional lending for a fix and flip. And I says, well, I have this program for you. And he says, well, I have one buddy of ours, mutual friend, that says, man, if it was 2 years ago, I'd be getting all that I can, but I don't know what's going on. And I was like, well, listen, where is his market? He's on the other side of the country. And there's markets that are declining and there's markets that are increasing. And I just told him, I was like, you got to know your market, because I didn't even know he was out in Texas in a place I've never lived in, right? And so I was like, you would have to make this decision, or with your realtor, because he had an agent. And I says, you've got to know that even when times are tough, are people going to be moving to your area? If your people are moving to your area, you know, your affordability, your appreciation's only going to go up because the demand's going to even be more, right? So your location does matter, you know. And I think where you put your roots, where you grow up, where you wanting to either start a family, where you want to live. You know, I think there's so many variables to asking that. You know.
Yeah, no, 100%. So the way we look at it, and it's the truth. What you're saying is, real estate is regional.
Yeah.
It is not nationwide. And on the news, everyone's getting this nationwide view of it, where, oh, it's declining in New York, it's declining in California, it's declining wherever else. But in Atlanta, we're not seeing that.
No.
You know, in Miami, they're not seeing that. We're seeing people flock here. I mean, the amount of people coming from the north down here to Atlanta is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, what I like to tell a lot of people is, and I'll use myself as an example, you know, when I bought my house, my interest rate was really low.
Yeah.
So the chances of me moving are slim to none. So you have a lot of percentage of people who recently bought in the past 3 years where their interest rates are low. They're not moving. They're not selling to 2.5, 3% going to go to a 5.5, 6.5% when they're happy where they're at with their payments. So you have all these people moving in here who are willing to pay. The problem is we don't have enough homes because people are not getting out. They're not selling. But I'd love to continue this. Let's discuss doing another episode and give more information to viewers. I'd like to thank Caleb for being here, and hope to see you guys on the next Real Tea. God bless you guys. Hope this was informative, and we'll be continuing pumping out podcasts for you guys, giving you more information. Please let us know. You can message Caleb. His information will be below. Message me, whatever questions you guys have. God bless. Thank you.